I was born on 29th December 1986, and probably a few months after my birth, I started falling sick. As a child, I would cry all night and roll on the floor all day. I would be sick like twice every month. My mother would carry me to the prophets, alphas, and herbalists while I prayed every day that God should just kill me. At age 14, my literate parents took me to the hospital for diagnosis, and that was the first time I knew I was born with the sickle cell disease, the SC genotype. One of my brothers who was born with the same conditions died when I was around 15, and while I cried bitterly for the loss of Laita, my elder brother, I was happy that at least I too would soon die. I secretly prepared for that day I would die, and it brought me joy whenever I remembered that it would be all over soon. But something strange happened. When I was 17, for the first time as I could remember, I spent 3 weeks without a sickle cell crisis. For the reason I don't know till today. My health improved so fast that by age 18, I was having probably just one sickle cell crisis a year. So I took this photograph around 2003 to celebrate the miracle of a healthy life. But something else is going through my mind. Haven't defeated a disease that even doctors thought should take my life, I now felt I could defeat almost anything in the world. I believed I could do anything, and I didn't shy away from sharing my crazy dreams with everyone around me. I became the best student in a class of about 700 people in the Polytechnic where I was studying accounting. I became a political leader, and when I was 21, I announced to my family members that I was getting out of school to build a company. Everyone told me that I couldn't do it. Some said I would destroy my own life. My mother cried many nights. My father was furious and asked everyone he knew to persuade me. The only brother I had alive advised me not to do what I said I wanted to do, and when I didn't listen, he disowned me. But I am a different person. I had fought with a terrible disease for 17 years and I won, and because of that, something in me believed that I could fight and win any battle. So, if you tell me that I would fail, crash my life, or die, none of those things seem as terrifying as the battle I had won in the past. In the year 2016, 8 years after I had been in the business world, I discovered an idea that helped me build my first successful company. And today, I believe that I can fight any battle or dare anything I wish. That's thanks to the sickle cell disease. Thanks to 17 years of pain, thanks to 17 years of rejection, stigmatization, and all the evil that I had to go through for 17 years. This is not a unique experience. The general understanding that suffering and distress can potentially yield positive change is 1,000 years old. For example, some of the early ideas and writing of the ancient Hebrews, Greeks, and early Christians, as well as some of the teachings of Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, and the Baha'i faith, contain elements of the potentially transformative power of suffering. Attempts to understand and discover the meaning of human suffering represent a central theme of much philosophical inquiry and appear in the work of novelists, dramatists, and poets all through human history. In the year 1996, the psychologists at the University of North Carolina, Richard G. Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, started studying people who had suffered traumatic life events such as bereavement, serious illness, house fires, combat, and becoming refugees. What Tedeschi and his colleagues found is that pain oftentimes leads to profit. People become stronger, better, and more powerful after they go through a difficult moment. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. Well, according to Tedeschi, and as many as 89% of survivors of trauma report at least one aspect of post-traumatic growth. Well, another psychologist, Judith Neal, studied 40 people who went through a traumatic experience such as serious illness, divorce, or the loss of a job, as well as a near-death experience. Judith discovered that initially, most of these people experience a dark night of the soul, the period of "I am finished," but then they discovered that they are not finished, tried to pick up themselves, and suddenly discovered that such experience in fact was a blessing. The truth about life is that all of us would experience some difficulties and trauma at some point in our lifetime. Many of these pains will hit us when we least expect it, and there's nothing we can do to avoid them. Examples could be losing a loved one, battling a terrible disease, or getting involved in an auto crash. When any of these hit, it's like being thrown to the river. Even if you don't know how to swim, you'll try hard. During this period of trial, we usually find out that we are much stronger than we earlier thought. Several scientific studies have found that humans are unbelievably resilient. Now, think about this. Resilience is the reason why our ancestors survived in the dangerous jungles against all odds. Resilience is the reason why 250,000 Jews survived the terrible concentration camps of Hitler. Resilience is the reason why about 9.6 million Africans survived the Middle Passage across the Atlantic during the slave trade, despite the inhumane conditions in which they were transported. When our house catches fire, we discover that we can break the windows, run through fire, or jump from a tall building. When someone pursues us with a gun, we discover that we can run 20 kilometers. If any of us is being pushed into a river, we suddenly discover that we can fight so hard for our life. But what if nothing forces that strength out of us? What if there's no external motivation for us to do difficult things? What if nothing forces you to run? That's the problem. And that's what I wish to talk about in this video. You see, peace is the problem of progress. Because in peace, humans are weak. Without any external motivation or force, most of us will never stand up to fight, to be uncomfortable, or to dare the devil. Unfortunately, every profit we desire is at the other side of pain. Every progress and purpose stands at the other side of pains, and it is by accepting these pains that we grow. In his 2007 book, The Dip, Seth Godin says that anything worth pursuing will have a messy middle. If you desire to have a meaningful life, you must first have a messy life. Now, think about life as this tree, and your pain as the wind. While a young tree would choose a life without wind if it can, what scientific studies have found is that trees that grow in an environment where there is no wind don't grow strong and later fall. On September 29, 1991, the University of Arizona opened 3.14 acres of scientific research facility they called Biosphere 2, located in Oracle, Arizona. One of the things the scientists were studying in this institute is the life of plants, so a huge glass dome was constructed to house an artificial controlled environment with purified air and water, healthy soil, and filtered light. The intent was to afford perfect growing conditions for trees, fruits and vegetables, as well as humans, and everything seemed to do well, until scientists discovered that when the trees grew to a certain height, they would topple over. It baffled them until they realized they forgot to include wind in this controlled environment. So, here's the thing. Even though wind and storms seem like a bad thing for trees that grow in an environment where the wind is absent die prematurely. The same can be said about humans. Going to the gym or exercising your body is painful, but if you don't do it, you'll have a weak body. Starting a business or building a successful business is an extremely painful journey, but on the other side of that pain is freedom and sometimes wealth. Saying no to sugar and junk food is painful, but on the other side, we have a healthy body. The strongest people amongst us, the most admired and the most successful, are at the same time the people who had gone through multiple stress, oftentimes intentionally. Think about William Warren Bradley. Born in 1943, at age 9, he fell in love with basketball. But beyond his height, Bradley had no natural gift for basketball. He was slow and gawky and could not jump very high. Many of the aspects of the game weren't easy for him, but he would devise a strategy to overcome all his weaknesses. He started a rigorous training routine. He would practice 3.5 hours every day after school, 8 hours every Saturday, and 3.5 hours on Sunday. In the gym, he will put 10-pound weights in his shoes to strengthen his legs and give him more spring to his jump. Bradley would wear eyeglass frames with pieces of cardboard taped to the bottom so he could not see the basketball while he practiced dribbling. This would train him to always look around him rather than at the ball, a key skill in passing. He set up chairs on the court to act as opponents. He would dribble around them back and forth for hours until he could glide past them quickly, changing direction. In his room at home, he practiced pivot moves and fakes well into the night, such skills that would help also to compensate for his lack of speed. Even when his family traveled to Europe via transatlantic ship, Bradley would never break his training routine. He instead turned the corridor of the ship to a court and used that for practice until the voyage was done. Practicing so hard over the years, Bradley slowly transformed himself into one of the biggest stars in basketball history. The transformation, success, and glory William Warren Bradley had in his career are like the wind for the trees. Training, practice, and daring a new territory could be painful, but if you avoid it, you've avoided success together with it. In the year 1718, the 60-year-old Josiah Franklin decided to introduce his 12-year-old child to his lucrative candle-making business. Even though the candle-making business was profitable and easier, Benjamin decided to choose a rather more difficult career in the printing press business because working in the printing press business would expose him to books and publications which will help his future career. In the year 1900, when the 21-year-old Albert Einstein graduated from Zurich Polytechnic, he got an offer of a job at his father's dynamo business and could also get a well-paid job in an insurance company. But Einstein rejected that good offer and accepted a less profitable job at the Swiss Patent Office, because working at the patent office exposed him to the knowledge he would need to further his career and give him time for his experiment. So much that when in 1905 Einstein published his theory of relativity, the patent office was the reason why he had the time to do it. Even though he wanted to become an entrepreneur as a young boy, Cesar Antonio Rodriguez decided to first surrender himself to army training to learn discipline. From my personal experience, pain is the only teacher we have in the world. Pain helps us to discover our inner strength. Pain makes us strong. Even though pain first breaks us, it also builds us. Whether you talk about Michelangelo, who worked day and night on the Florentine Pieta for 8 years, or you talk about Booker T. Washington, who as a slave child taught himself how to read, human progress, success, and accomplishments are always at the other side of pains. Embrace the pain your journey brings. Step out and dare your dream. Do things that make you uncomfortable. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve Courage.